And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this finally Friday, November 14th. We're going to have, if not record-setting temperatures, near record warmth today. Unbelievable. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki. Bridgette Readel, she'll be along with us in just a bit. She was emceeing an event out at NDSU, so she'll be in shortly. But I'll tell you what, if you haven't stepped outside yet, we're already right at 60 degrees here at the studio. There's even some 70s in the state out around Mandan. They're in the low 70s right now, while the northwestern corner of the state, areas up around Crosby, are in the upper 40s. I'd say there's a cold front dividing the state. It's just entering the northwest part of the state right now. And we are looking at a beautiful, beautiful day today. In fact, again, the record is 66, and it looks like we're going to come pretty darn close to that. Forecasting 65, but again, I wouldn't be too surprised to see if we hit 66 in some spots, even a degree or two warmer than that, with winds generally out of the south at about 10 to 20. So not overly windy today either. Might be one of those days where you might want to button up all those outdoor activities in terms of getting things ready for winter. Hey, good day to hang holiday lights today as well before the cold air hits. We will have a cold front coming through the area as we head into tonight, and that could trigger off an isolated shower or two. We're not looking at much out of that, as lows dip down into the mid to upper 30s and winds turn to the northwest at about 10 to 15. And for Saturday, if you're going tailgating for the Bison game, it looks cooler, but nothing too cold. We're looking at a pretty good northwest wind, too, about 15 to 25 and gusty. And temps during tailgating in the upper 30s to low 40s, and we should top out, it looks like, in the mid to upper 40s for your Saturday. And then as we head into Sunday, a lot more sunshine and lighter winds as well. So winds will be a big difference as we head into Sunday, with highs in the low 40s. And then a few clouds come around Monday, Tuesday as a storm system passes to our south, with highs in the low 40s. And then as we head through the rest of next week, we're going to have temperatures above normal. Could have a little light precip towards the end of the week as another storm system appears to glide to our south. But there's a couple things we're noticing. And we've been hinting at this for about a week now, that after mid-month we were going to start seeing some changes. And we do know one thing for sure. It is going to turn much colder for Thanksgiving week into that first part of December. We're going to have what we call a cross-polar flow, it looks like, and that means that air will be coming straight out of the Arctic. So if we can get any kind of snowpack on the ground, that will intensify the cold as it comes down here at the end of the month. Now, I'm not seeing much in the way of any snow next week, but the following week, and I know this isn't good timing, but the following week, Thanksgiving week, I do see our chances for snow increasing across not only the northern but the central plains. So if you have any travel plans Thanksgiving week or that week after Thanksgiving, you'll want to keep up to date on the forecast. Again, one thing we know for sure is that we're going to turn colder. The question is, do we see any snow out ahead of that? And speaking of snow, Addison, you want to give something away? You feel like giving? Are you in that Giving Friday mood?
I'm feeling gracious today. Why not?
How about a WDAY hat? We're going to give that away to the first caller that can tell me, when did we receive our first inch of snow last year? 701-293-9000. When did we receive our first inch of snow last year? Got to give me the date. You don't have to give me how much we got, but if you can give me the date of when was our first snowfall of an inch or greater last year for WDAY hat. 701-293-9000. Did we have snow last year before or after Thanksgiving? Addison, you have any idea? You remember? You could barely remember last week.
Hey, just remember, we're not going to have we're not going to have any until after Thanksgiving this year, you guys. Just remember, I promised.
You think? Who'd you promise?
Me. I promised me.
Well, we clearly got the inch of snow when it fell, obviously.
Oh, you're killing me, Smalls. Jeez. Thanks, Ed. Thanks. You know what? I'm going to get you a hat just for that smart aleck answer. I think you deserve it.
Thank you, Dean. I do deserve it. I do deserve a treat. I think.
Didn't you say your mom tells you you're a special shining star? Didn't we have
It's
this
true,
discussion?
I think she just said he was special. I don't know if she
A
said.
lot of people tell me that,
Yeah.
but they say it in varying degrees of.
Do they? Okay, well, you're special in our eyes. 701-293-9000 for a WDAY hat. When was our first inch of snowfall last year? Was it before Thanksgiving? Was it after Thanksgiving? What date was it on? So if you have that or you want to take a guess, shoot us a call. Bridgette, it's beautiful. I know you were busy emceeing a big event over at NDSU. Have you gotten outside? Did you get outside for lunch at all?
After I finish eating my lunch, which is right in front of me, so I apologize for the chewing, then yes, I am going to be headed outside, so I want to check things out. Also, I'm looking forward to today. One of our guests, our first guest actually, is going to be Gregg Hanson with Hanson Agri Commodities. The first WDAY report, which is like the World Ag Supply Demand Report, is out in quite some time. And with the government shutdown, we had been expecting this report to come, but didn't know how it was going to get compiled. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that report said and what Gregg's analysis will be. But meanwhile, we're playing trivia. And for those of you who want to join in, you can call us on that JLA Insurance phone line, which is 701-293-9000. If you choose to reach out with questions for today's guest, you can do that by reaching weather@flagfamily.com or ag@flagfamily.com. Thank you to Superior Grain Equipment, who powers our inboxes for the day. We truly appreciate the work that they do behind the scenes. And then also, I think we'll probably touch on some headlines. There's a number of things going on, and I'm just curious, has anybody got it right yet, guys?
You cut out there, Bridgette. What'd you say?
Did anybody get our trivia question correct yet?
We do have an answer or a caller on line one. Caller, what's your name?
Ben.
Ben, what is your guess? When was our first inch of snowfall last year?
I'm going to guess December 11th.
No, it was before that. That's a good guess. I thought it was in December too, but it was not. It was in November. Okay, so I'll give you a hint on that, but I'm not going to tell you when in November. So again, 701-293-9000 for your chance to win a WDAY hat. Any guesses? Do you think it was before or after Thanksgiving, Bridgette?
I said last year's snowfall.
Our first inch.
I feel like it was after. In fact, I would love to say that we didn't really get any until maybe New Year, only because it felt like we had such little snow, which our outdoorsmen, especially if they were ice fishing, were thrilled. We had great ice last year.
Right.
And it was nice clear ice.
Yeah, and we're going to see if you didn't. I don't know if you were on time earlier, Bridgette. That at the end of the month into early December, we are going to see a big pattern change. One thing we know for sure is much colder weather coming down. This will start our ice formation because we're going to have extended cold weather as we head towards the end of the month. The question is, how much snow do we get out ahead of it? All right, caller, what's your name and what's your guess?
Name is Heidi. I'm guessing November 18th.
November 18th. Oh, Heidi, you're close. You're close. You're going to have to call back, though, Heidi. Heidi was close. She said November 18th. We did have precip on that day, on the 18th. It was all in the form of rain, though. It was all in the form of rain. So
was that an icy day? Because that's usually the days we remember the most.
No, we had highs in the 50s on the 18th. Yeah, we had highs in the 50s,
okay.
And we had just under a half inch of rain. So let's take a couple more callers here before we go to break. Caller, what's your name and what's your guess?
Taylor, and I'm gonna say November 15th.
No, but close. Again, we're all in the same ballpark here. Caller, what's your name and what's your guess?
Terry, I'm going to guess November 19th.
Terry, you're knocking at the door. That's all I can say. Well, what we've had the 18th and the 19th. It's right around in that time frame. If you've been listening, we've had the 18th as a guest and the 19th as a guest. Now, we did have a big storm system last year right around the 18th, and that did bring us, again, quite a bit of rainfall as well. Caller, can I get your name and your guess, please?
My name's Ben,
Ben.
and my guess is November 20th.
Bingo. You got it, Ben. We were running out of guesses there. But yeah, the 18th and 19th, we had quite a bit of rain and the first inch of snow. Now, we had 0.8 of an inch on the 19th, but our first inch or more of snow was on the 20th last year. So that was right before Thanksgiving. So, Ben, we're going to put you on hold. Our wonderful and talented special producer, Addison, he's going to get all your info for you.
Great, thank you.
All right, you bet. So there we got it, the 20th. So that big storm, 18th, 19th, it was a 3-day storm, which brought quite a bit of rain on the front side and then snow, about 3 inches on its backside.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch if we have something like that develop again, where we get more snow, or excuse me, more rainfall before we freeze up for the year.
Right.
Not really sure yet.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see
find
how
that
it
out soon, I'm
unfolds.
sure.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, we've got a moment to hear the livestock report from the American Ag Network, and when we return, we will be joined by Gregg Hanson with Hanson Agri-Commodities. Again, the WASI report came out today. There's certainly lots of talk of it at the NDSU Agribusiness Luncheon I attended. Quite a few bankers in the room, commodity traders, et cetera. So I think they're all rushing out to read the report updates. And I look forward to hearing what Gregg has to share with us when we return.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. It's a beautiful, beautiful afternoon out there. We've got temperatures across the area right around the 60-degree mark. In fact, there's some areas in the state that are approaching 70 or at 70. Let's see. Ypsilanti, you're at 70 degrees, 72 in Mandan. Wow. Temperatures a little closer to home. We're looking at 61 in Glendon, 63 in Ulen, 60s out to our west, Daisy, mid-60s. We're looking at Fingal in the mid-60s. And here in the FM area, we're in the low 60s, up around the Northern Valley. Temperatures generally in the mid to upper 50s, down to our south. Wahpeton over into Lakes Country, low to mid-60s, while the northwest corner of the state out around Crosby, only in the 40s. There's a cold front, again, moving through the state. It's just entering the northwestern corner of the state right now. As it slowly moves eastward and southward, we'll see our chances for rain overnight increase, but don't look for much. We're looking at just a few light showers, just enough to dirty up the car if you got it washed, and then it looks like a dry weekend. A little breezy on Saturday with temperatures in the 40s, both Saturday and Sunday. So a mild, obviously, almost record-breaking day today, but temperatures over the weekend still above normal in the 40s. And all next week, it looks like we're going to have temperatures above normal in the 40s, but it's the week after. It's the next 2 weeks after that, the last week of the month and into that first part of December. It looks like the Arctic opens up, and we really get some cold air pouring into the northern plains. So be prepared for that. That Thanksgiving week and the week after look very cold. And the question mark is, how much snow do we get out ahead of it? We've had our models keep going back and forth between burying us and hardly giving us anything at all. So when we see drastic changes like that, we know something big is going to happen. The question is timing of it and how it is all going to pan out. But when our models flip-flop back and forth like that between getting buried in snow and then hardly any snow at all, that's kind of the red flag that, all right, something big is about to happen, but just how it unfolds, our models have no handle on it just yet. But it would fall in line, Bridgette, to the stormy period we had in cycle 1 of the LRC. I believe it was October about the 11th through the 18th, where we had 2 big storms race through the state, dropping a lot of moisture out in the central and western parts of the state, and not as much here in the east. So it coincides with that part of the LRC cycle. We'll wait and see if that actually does unfold that way, but that's the way it's kind of looking right now. So by the end of the month, it's a little longer cycle this year, it looks like, than it was the previous couple of years. So that's the one thing we're kind of keeping our eye on.
Excellent. Well, also keeping our eye on, we are lining up our guests. We had a little snafu in the background with some technical difficulties, but I think we've got everybody. So we will rejoin in just momentarily. We'll have Gregg Hanson with Hanson Agri Commodities. We need to hear what top markets. And then following, we'll have a chance to visit with Chad Davison. He is with Progressive Farms. I want to talk about controlled traffic farming and what that is. We'll be right back. And even better, our guest right now is Gregg Hanson. He's with Hanson Agri Commodities, and it has been a big week for markets and a big day as well. Greg, where would you like to begin your recap of what's happening commodity wise?
Well, it's all about today. It's all about the supply demand report. As we're finishing here, corn's going to be down about 10, 11. Beans going to be down 19 to 22. Wheat's going to be off about 5 to 12. And it's all about today's report. We haven't had one of these in 2 months. And, they gave us something to talk about. When I look at our corn yield, 186.0 nationwide, that was only down 7/10 of a bushel. The market was looking for about a 3 bushel drop. And so you kind of go state by state, lots of question marks. There's a lot of people having disagreements on where things are at. When I look at the corn carryout, 2.154, pretty close to what we're looking at. They did not make any adjustments to the feed residual number, and that feels too high. So I think at some point there's going to be a day of reckoning on that. Soybeans was pretty much as advertised. Corn, the yield 53.0, that's down half a bushel, pretty much in line with the guesses. Carry out 290, down 10 million. That's kind of in line with the guesses. So beans,
Sure.
it felt like this week beans got ahead of themselves. And so, my thought going into the report was a neutral report is a negative report, and that's kind of how it played out today. But the corn number's a little bigger than we anticipated, and like I say, we're going to end up down a dime because of that.
Okay, so for everyone who's sitting out there thinking, what should I be doing? Is this a move to try to start, I guess, am I calling my local elevator to try to make a better deal? Am I trying to somehow think ahead about what my 26 crop has to look like? What's my first step after reading that report today, Greg?
Well, I said going into the report, this whole week's been an opportunity to get some marketing done. We know the farmers have been actively selling beans. Hopefully you've been pricing some old crop. Hopefully you've started looking at next year's crop. On the corn, there was a lot of selling of corn the last few days, especially in the eastern belt. There's been a little bit out here, it sounds like. So hopefully, if you haven't been making sales, it's got to a spot where you should probably have been thinking about it. Now the question will be is how much will we correct? It feels to me like beans got ahead of themselves. Even from here, we could set back 50, 70 cents. And to be honest, we probably need to. We're 50 cents going into the day, at least 50 cents higher than Brazilian beans. We needed to have a correction so we can get competitive, so we can see the Chinese come in and buy. And so I think that's all that'll happen is we get a correction. We should see Chinese buying, and that should hopefully push us back up again. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some back and forth choppy trade, like a little bit of a yo-yo action, and we just trade our range, which is ratcheted up from where we had been before the Chinese deal. Corn's been nothing but a follower until really yesterday. But I think, if you set corn back another 10, 15, there's probably people willing to step in and own it. So I don't know if we have to set back too far in the corn market, the beans maybe a little bit just to get competitive. But I would just say if you did not take advantage of this rally, just get ready and get reloaded because I think there'll be another opportunity. Just get ready for the next push.
And Greg, I was wondering if I follow I won't say the name or the business, but he's a CEO of a well-known steak company in the United States, and I was following some of his tweets and stuff on X, and he was saying that he foresees sometime next year the price of ground beef being at or just over $10 a pound. Do you think that's reasonable, or is that kind of overdoing it a little bit?
If we just talk supply demand 101, we don't have enough meat today. There's going to be a day where we'll be able to get the border open. That'll help some. I just saw there was a tweet out here earlier today. It sounds like the Trump administration is going to look at maybe reducing tariffs on some beef and some coffee and some bananas, things that we can't raise here are some of the things. They're trying to do what they can.
Right.
But we just flat out, it's going to take some time to rebuild the herd. That's all there is to it. There's no way around it. Bringing in some cattle from Mexico helps. But those are not the cuts you're necessarily buying at the grocery store, other than maybe for some of the hamburger. They're more select. They're not your steaks. They're not your roasts. They're probably some ground burgers, some fast food meat. It'll all help, but you can't change the fact that we just have to increase the herd. And are we going to see meat go to 10? Someone told me here this summer they were out out in the hills and they saw hamburger at $9.99. So I mean, theoretically, we might be already there.
Phew.
And honestly, I don't think that would be a surprise, because as right now, as we look to, like Greg was saying, we're waiting for the border to open. It's not so easy to bring beef across the border from Canada as well. So until we start to see some recoup in that market, and you don't just get a calf and gets processed immediately, you need a little bit of time to bring that animal to fruition. So I can see where we're sitting there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think about as a livestock producer, you look at pricing on corn and so forth. Are you getting nervous? Are we close to some of those levels where people say, "Oh, it's going to be expensive to feed"?
No, because if you think about what the reason we're in this, call it this mess that we're in with the livestock industry, we had the drought, and so being a good steward of your animals, guys were said, look, I can't feed my animals, and corn's $5. I can't afford to do that, so I got to get rid of them. If we'd have had this situation with price during the drought, maybe we would not have liquidated the herd as hard as we did. But I think prices are a whole lot more reasonable for buying corn now than they were 2-3 years ago when that drought and we got into the mess. I do think, guys, I've got one producer I know. He told me here just the other day he had bought was about 10,000-12,000 bushels of corn from one of his neighbors. His neighbor didn't have room. The elevator was getting full. I'll buy it from you. I need it anyway. So you'll see some of that. I think if you're a cattle guy and you need to buy corn, do you buy on today's 10-cent setback? It's better than where it was. I think there's a little more room for correction. It really feels like we're just stuck in a trading range, and we happen to be at the very upper end of that yesterday. But if you saw a 10-20 cent setback, that's probably a buy in the corn side.
Right, absolutely. So also talking about corn, how clear is your crystal ball on when that next rally might happen? Is there, I know there's not a good way to put a timeline on it, but do you feel comfortable saying you might see a little bit more of a rally right at the new year, before or after?
It might really depend on soybeans. Other than probably yesterday and the day before, corn has been absolutely nothing but a follower. So really, we got to look at the bean market. The bean market needs to correct so we can get our beans cheaper than Brazil, so we can go get the Chinese come in and buy. When that happens, beans will go up, corn will follow.
Yes.
Long term, to get out of the trading range we're stuck in, it's going to take something other than what we're dealing with. And the only thing I can see is, here's your risk disclaimer. I mean, we'll see if this happens, but is there corn in the world? Yes, there is. But if one of the major exporters, i.e. us, Brazil, Argentina, Ukraine, if someone has a problem, things get really interesting really fast on the world balance sheet. So we can't trade any South American weather today. It's too early. It's something to watch. But if for some reason we had a weather issue in South America, not only would the beans want to trade it, corn would maybe try to make up for some lost ground. When you look at this rally, beans rallied $1.30. Corn did what, 35-40 cents? That's way out of whack as far as what the ratio should be. So it feels like where beans got overvalued, corn didn't follow along enough. You give us a weather opportunity this winter, next summer, corn could get interesting, but it really will take a weather problem to do it.
Do you see, because I think we hear this question a lot with the situation where we're in right now, we as a country have always been the top dog in producing corn and soybeans, and that's certainly changing, where we're not maybe the top producer as we once were. Do you see us making a big shift from corn to soybeans next year? Because let me turn that around. Actually, do you see us making a big shift to corn from soybeans because we think Brazil can continue to be a much lower cost producer, and Brazil maybe doesn't care about corn, and they want to turn their focus on things like cotton and other areas?
No, I think Brazil knows they've got that Chinese market. So they're going to try to take advantage of this the best they can. They're going to keep trying to produce more beans. I think locally, Minnesota, here in the Dakotas, our corn yield was so good. There's guys that want to do some corn on corn. You go elsewhere in the country, you don't hear that. The disease issues in southern Iowa and Illinois, you're not hearing that corn on corn chatter. If we just look at what were acres last year versus this, corn and beans both, we really pushed our corn acre number. I mean, we had, I believe, a record corn acre number of 98.7 million acres planted, versus soybeans at 81. There was about a 6 to 8 million acre shift from the year before. We should naturally see a shift into soybeans this year here in the U.S. Now, up here in Northwest Bean Belt, could that get cushioned a little bit from some corn on corn? Yes, it could. But I would anticipate that we will see, with what we know today, probably 5-6 million acre shift into soybeans at the expense of corn. It might be more so the eastern belt, the southern belt, than it is up here in the north. But we should see actually more bean acres and less corn nationwide, which could, if we don't get a weather problem, could weigh on this bean balance sheet going forward. It might help the corn balance sheet a little bit as we go into our growing season.
Gregg Hanson joins us with Hanson Agri Commodities out of Minnesota every Friday. And Gregg, if folks want to talk with you further, especially after your report came out today and discussing the week in totality, how can they reach out to you?
Well, the easiest way is grab your phone, call 507-338-6433. You can always check out our website at hanson-ag.com or look on Facebook for Hanson Agri Commodities.
Appreciate that very, very much today, Gregg. And we're going to switch our attention to Chad Davison. He's with Progressive Farms near Moorhead. And Chad, you and I were able to start having a discussion based on some email trading that was going on, really about a topic that many people don't discuss very much, and that's called controlled farming. And you said, I'm not an expert because I don't do it like they do in Europe. So, Chad, tell us a little bit more about what your interpretation might be of controlled traffic farming.
So basically what we try to do, and like I said, we're not the expert, but we try to just minimize compaction wherever we can. A lot of times we've noticed quite the yield disparity on the headlands or the end rows of our fields. So what we do is we line up our equipment the best we can where it makes financial sense, like our planter and our sprayer, and we have a cultivator that we use occasionally. Those are all in the same tram lines, if you will. And with technology, we can get pretty much right on the same rows year after year with RTK and AutoPath. But a lot of times it's just controlling where the semis are going to in the field. Many times we have to load semis in the field, and with those narrow tires, the compaction gets quite deep. So we try to stay near the approaches in our fields, and we have usually 2 to 3 approaches on each of the end rows, and just keep the semis there. The fear is if you get the compaction too deep, which it very may well with semis, that you can't get it out, and then it really starts to cost you in the form of reduced yield year after year.
So really what we're looking at doing here is on your farm, and again, you're just over the border near Moorhead, you're trying to look at where can we run equipment consistently so that we don't have additional compaction in our fields, right? And is there a tipping point where you're saying, okay, we've overused this particular traffic line, if you will, and we have to start moving somewhere else within the field to keep equipment moving in just that spot?
Yeah, we just want to minimize where the heavy compaction is in general, because then we have a chance of getting it out, or we can just reduce the percentage of acres that are getting negatively impacted. The reason why we probably don't do more of it in our field is because you'd have to get all your equipment. You'd have to line the track size or the track width of everything, and for us, that'd be a financial consideration that's be quite steep. Then also just moving around, probably bigger, it's heavier. So it's a little harder out in the fields like you would maybe in Europe.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about compaction and why it's such a concern to a farmer. I mean, when did you first start noticing that there were some impacts in your crop, and what are the telltale signs, you might say, that you were concerned about?
I think we could immediately. I just noticed when I first came back to farm years ago, the headlands, the crop health wasn't as good. The plants are smaller, and you could see it in the yield monitor. If you're combining, you could see pretty easily like a 60 bushel yield difference or greater. versus the main part of the field or the long rows. So you just start to ask questions like, well, what is that? And I think part of the reason is being in the field when it's wet, driving heavy equipment on the field, especially wet, just trying to figure out the root cause of that. And what we've tried doing, and I feel like it's working because our yields are definitely much better than where they were years ago. A lot of it is trying to be patient in the spring and not do tillage when it's wet. I mean, there's scenarios where that doesn't always work out the way you want it, but we're the best where you can. We try to stay patient, and that's not always easy. And then in the falls too, just hopefully you can stay patient, use weather to your advantage. And we've used tiled most of our fields now, and so that certainly helps dry out some of those soils. And then just minimize where those semis go. It's not always ideal to load on roads. Maybe the roads aren't wide enough, and there's a safety component to that too that's not ideal. So we just try to minimize where they're going.
When you think about compaction in the field, do you see that it varies by crop? Because correct me if I'm wrong, y'all have sugar beets in your rotation, you have some wheat and some soybeans. Please list anything I'm missing. But then do you see compaction being more of a robbing culprit in one crop over another?
It's probably more noticeable, and it's noticeable in all the crops, but the yield numbers are just higher in the corn. It's easier to yield monitor. Sugar beets, you can see it in just having fewer plants out there. We don't really have a yield monitor for that. We also raise alfalfa. It's hard to quantify the yield there too, and you see it in the soybeans. Just the yield numbers you don't have as great of a yield in the soybeans as the corn. So it's just easier to see it on a yield monitor in the corn, but it definitely affects all of our crops, and you can see it. There's fewer plants, shorter plants. It's usually fairly noticeable depending on how bad the compaction is.
So when you talk about controlled traffic in your field, you're using very specific areas to keep your equipment on. Does that ever align over the top of like your tile lines, or do you try to avoid that where you've installed drain tile that you don't want to consistently be like a planter or a sprayer over that tile line?
No, the tile lines don't make a difference for us. Usually they're smoothed out enough so you don't, within a couple of years, you don't even notice them. We just try to, like with our semis, for example, we just want to minimize the area that those have driven in. They have their entry points and exits on the field, and we prefer to keep them close there. We'd rather drive the grain cart, I guess, in our to the semis. It's wet. The grain cart will probably cause some action. Also, I just feel that it's not as deep, and I feel like we have options to help mitigate that compaction. It's primarily with the semis, from what I've noticed. It just gets so deep, it just takes a really long time to mitigate that. So so that's what we do. That's what we try to do. Minimize the semis. That's the big one for us.
You know, when you talk about having those areas in the field where you're keeping your traffic, to me it sounds a little bit like a wagon train, right? Like you've got that trail through the field that you consistently use, and that's sort of what it sounds like when people talk about it. Do your controlled traffic areas get planted at all in those fields, or do you not have crop on there, is a question as well.
We do. Yeah, we plant them. And our areas have gotten better. So there's a number of things that we try to do. When I look at our field, try to max single acre we have. So pattern tiles certainly helps. The crop rotation, the alfalfa seems to help bring back soil health. We have access to liquid manure to many of our acres. We have a large dairy by us. We also spread a lot of dry manure, and we put down a large amount of dry manure to help with the soil health. We've also, in the last couple of years, we've started getting into cover crops too. just dabbling our toe there. There's a lot of work to do there as well. But we feel like all those things help with the soil health. So yeah, the spots that were bad years ago seems to have gotten a lot healthier. It takes time, but it's certainly trending that direction on our fields.
Is it easier to train employees when you are using these old areas so folks know exactly where they need to be in the field with equipment?
Yeah, it's not too hard. It just takes a little bit of planning. So we try to have a meeting before we go out to the field and be very specific and over communicate just so everyone's on the same, just so we can execute our plan. There's nothing worse than having a plan and then and then it doesn't get executed. So we try to communicate that, and the communication is also a big part of just keeping everyone safe. You don't want, you want everyone to be on the same page and not one person something different that can cause some unexpected issues. So we just communicate that.
Chad Davison is with Progressive Farms, and thank you. Just a brief email conversation turned into an opportunity to view about it's a term that not everybody knows, but it's certainly a practice that happens readily here in the Red River Valley. So we really appreciate you joining us today, Chad. Dean, I think it's going to be a great day. Get on out and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Hopefully I will as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And in fact, we've got near record warmth today. We're currently in the low 60s. We'll make it up into the mid 60s. Our record is 66. We'll be flirting with that. It does cool down over the weekend. Pick day will be Sunday, although both days will see sunshine, just a little breezy on Saturday with temps in the 40s. So for Bridgette, myself, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Weather and Ag in Focus. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.